So picking up, I'm going to bring in the rendering. I'm going to also make sure that my layers are clean from what I expected them to be within Rhino. And this layer 01 is just the shadow layer of the lines that I had just put in. But I have my interior outline and hidden, all as I had put them out in Rhino. So if I go in and I want to place, I'm going to place my rendering 02. Because this is a PNG file, the background will read as transparent when I bring it into Illustrator, as well as PSDs. So I suggest if you do any editing to it, as we did on Saturday, that you bring them into Illustrator as a PSD, so that that background won't be overlapping anything or causing any difference within your white artboard with what's in the rendering. So I'm just going to bring in my rendering 02, hit place, and then you can see this is what I'm talking about. If this was a JPEG, there would be a white box background around this rendering, and therefore you wouldn't be able to see this line work. I'm going to make a rendering layer and put it at the bottom of my layering system. This does mean that there is a hierarchy, so that anything that's on layer 1 will be above what's at the interior outline and hidden. So if I click this, I'm going to rename it to be rendering. Hit OK. And then associate this by right-clicking Arrange Send to Current Layer if I have my rendering layer selected. And you'll see that it has the yellow controls. Therefore, it's on that layer. I'm going to lock everything else for now by just clicking left and dragging up and down with this. And I'm going to scale this to my line work. I'm going to try to approximate and get it the best that I can. However, if it's off a little bit, I will let my lines cover that. It's in areas like this that you need to be a little bit careful when that image is going outside of the line work, so therefore it's creating a jagged alias type line or appearance. And that looks pretty good. All of the lines are the clean vector lines I have. Yes, so I will leave it right there. I'm going to lock this for now and unlock all of these, and then also bring in my okay, so in case you didn't notice this, I can't place anything right now because I'm on a locked layer. If this happens to you, just click onto a layer that's active and not locked, and then I'll be able to place that image. I'm going to select the skylight image as well and do both of the scalings in the same moment. So if I unlock, well, I'll just leave this here for now. You can see that also this one is output as something else. It's a PNG. Right, because the background of this one, we had that plane, therefore it's going to read as white because there is that object of the plane within the complete viewport of what we were working with. This is fine for skylight because we're going to turn the opacity way down on this so that it should just be white on white except for the area where we have the shadow. If I unlock my rendering, I'm going to lock everybody else, put this to this layer, lock, and then scale this to what I have just done with this. Hopefully it will snap and then I can see, because they're at the same viewport, they should be at the same scale within Illustrator. And then if I have them directly overlapping, which it doesn't look like I do, you can hit Control Y to see the basic information of your images. And so right now, the one that I was moving is not overlapping clearly that first rendering. So I'm just going to try to move it as close as possible. However, the processing is not liking this. Okay, I think that's close enough for now. Hit Control Y to exit that, and then let's see how the skylight works. So that's not so bad. This is that line that I was talking about, like on my white artboard. Now you can see the distinction between the two, and ideally you don't want that, so I would go back and change that viewport output resolution to fit the full rendering, and then scale it to fit within the artboard. So I'm going to make one more layer called rendering skylight so that I can distinguish between the two of these. And then put this to that layer into current, and then turn it off. So let's work within this guy first. I'm going to rename my layer 01 because this will get confusing unless you're particular about the way you call things, and call it the shadows, or shadow lines, because this represents those shadow lines we pulled off of the rendering in the first place. I'm going to unlock that and then lock my rendering layer. I'm going to take these over to here and then scale them to fit my rendering. I'm also going to unlock my rendering for a second, just select that, and bump the opacity down to like 25 so that I can start to see the difference between the lines that I'm working with and that rendering. Then I'll lock it again, and then I'll select my lines and start to scale these. So for right now I'm going to leave it as this. Even though they're not matching up perfectly, it's going to be enough for what I want to do. The reason I had this step included was because in case you don't want to use the rendering shading that you got and you want to create your own kind of shadow that's a pattern, we're going to show you how to do that. So if you select your shadow lines, then if you go to Symbol Libraries, Patterns, Swatch Libraries, Patterns, Basic Graphics, I'm going to make a series of dots be my shadow instead of a gray. And this is just so that you guys have some options with how you start to represent shading. I'm going to click the first option of it, and we can see that that scale and that density is not at all representative of a kind of a field condition within our illustration. So I'm also going to turn off my outline. I don't want my shadows to have that. And then I'm going to right click and type in transform and change the scale of this. So the way you do this is, instead of doing the objects under your options, if you just select patterns, type in or hit preview, you can scale just the pattern that you're working with. And this goes for any kind of swatch or basic pattern that you're working with within Illustrator. You have the option to change the scaling independently. So I'm going to make it at 25 and just click down to here not to change it, but then click back here. The problem is you can turn preview on and off and see the way that it's changing. That's not quite dense enough for my diagram. I'm going to change it to 15, and you're going to start to see it look quite dense. I'm going to scale in just to see if that looks delicate enough, and it does. So for now I'm going to leave it as that. So then when I turn off my rendering, you can start to see another line way of representing shading within your diagram. Now in terms of my line work, I'm going to unlock, and then I'm going to select my interior lines. I'm going to put everything actually to 0.25 to begin with. I can do this by selecting, nope, I can't do that way, selecting each layer just so I can see when I start light what I should be making a heavier line weight. So for my outline, I'm going to put it at 1 and see what this is looking like. I'm also going to change this to be black, and that's looking, the variation between these two lines is looking good. So if I select hidden, I want to keep it at 0.25, I want to make it black, and then I'm going to give it a stroke. I'm going to give it a dash stroke that's quite tight. Let's see what 3 point looks like. And I think I'm going to go one more and make it 2 because I want it to be quite a tight hidden line. Yes. So right here you can see that there's a little bit of a overlap between my hidden line. There's a duplication that's occurring there. I'm going to go in and delete this. If you see this in any of your line work, I suggest you do the same, just so that it doesn't compromise the hidden line information. And then in terms of my interior line, I'm going to make that black as well. And see how that is represented. That's fine. I'm going to delete this portion here because it looks like it's causing some confusion. So I'm going to keep it clean, but that's just my decision for that intersection. It should have been represented as it was shown within the drawing. I'm also going to delete here that hidden line so that it's not a duplicate. And here. So now I have a nice toned white with a little bit of hidden line information within my diagram. And we're going to pause here for now.